You'll remember that we talked about the difference between autotrophs and heterotrophs, and that animals are heterotrophic for the most part. So what that means is that they obtain their energy and their nutrients from eating other organisms. So we are, as animals, we are heterotrophs. Now, there are some animals that specialize in eating plants, and those would be the herbivores. And then some that are specialized in eating animals like carnivores, and then some that do both like we do both, which would be omnivores. So those are subcategories of being heterotrophs. When we talk about this, remember that we need to obtain all of the nutrients from our diet. And so this is why there are nutritional labels on packages, for example, explaining what is found in each source of our food. We also have the ability to perhaps sense when, for example, we crave carbohydrates, because that tends to be sweet things, when we crave fats and proteins, because those tend to be savory. So maybe we do have an inherent ability to kind of know what our body needs. So in heterotrophs, we could have malnutrition, where you are not getting the necessary nutrients. This is specifically important in terms of protein. So we can talk about the proteins that we have in our bodies, which have 20 different amino acids. So we have 20 different amino acids that are put together in a different order in order to create a protein. You might have heard of some names of these, like phenylalanine, histamine, glutamate. So there are some examples of amino acids, but there's 20 different ones. So when we look at plant sources of these amino acids, if we're looking at just becoming vegetarian and vegan, for example, and not eating animals sources at all, the plant sources have an incomplete form of protein. And what that means is they don't have all the necessary amino acids. So specifically, if you eat legumes, they have one set of amino acids. And then if you eat grains, they have the other set of amino acids. So if in a meal you put legumes like peas or like beans or like peanuts, and you combine them with grains that are like wheat, that are like rice, right? So if we combine those two things together, then that would be a complete source of protein. There is a way to get all the necessary amino acids from in our diet if we are just going to eat vegetarian. So for example, if I was going to eat beans and rice, if I was going to have peanut butter on wheat bread, those would be examples of complete protein. When we look at animal protein, this does. So if I was going to eat fish or beef or chicken, I would have a complete source of protein. So animal sources are what are referred to as complete protein. So I'm just referring to here as in humans, for example. Different organisms actually have different essential amino acids. So they might have to obtain different amino acids from their diet. So understanding that is obviously really important if you're going to be a producer of livestock, understanding what are their nutritional needs. Now, when we as humans don't get enough protein, we start to see signs of malnutrition that include, say, for example, swelling of the belly And so in children that are not getting enough protein, you might ask, well, why is their belly so big? And it actually has to do with the fact that they're not producing enough proteins in their blood to retain water in their circulatory system. So they're getting swelling in their tissues. And so there is actually a name for that, of malnutrition protein, and it is called, named after a person, I believe, and it's called Kowarczak. And I never can spell it, so I have to look it up. This is Shiorka. Don't know how to say it either, right? So this is a lack of protein in particular. And we're going to talk about populations, and we're going to talk about human populations, and we're going to talk about sustainability. This is huge, right? How are we going to sustainably feed 8 to 10 billion people on the planet? Where is the protein going to come from? And so you might talk about eating lower on the food chain. You might talk about eating herbivores or smaller fish, right? But that would be talking about where our nutrients are going to come from in the future. Like, are we going to be eating algae, for example, in the future? Where are our nutrients going to come from? And so understanding the nutritional needs, and then understanding energy flows and conservation of matter is all important to those concepts and ideas.